Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 215. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess. If you've never heard my voice before, hello and welcome to this beautiful, lovely, amazing community and show. Wander Wealthy is all about helping money coaches, brand new or ones who've been doing it for a minute, build their sustainable and thriving coaching businesses. So whether you would consider yourself a money coach, financial coach, money mindset coach, wealth coach, if you deal with money, you are in the right place. And no matter where you're at on your journey, you're also in the right place because we focus here on fundamentals of building a strong, thriving business. We don't necessarily talk about a lot of the cool tactics and funnel hacking and doing things like that because it's really about building a strong foundation first and foremost. And that's what we're all about here. Another thing we like to talk about from time to time is coaching and how to be the best coach in this space. And although we're not talking about that today, that's something that you can get here and there as well. Today, what we're talking about is a little bit of a zoom out. It's actually not so much about business, like business how-to or coaching how-to. It's a little bit more about the mindset of approaching this industry and this market and how you might feel about it right now. We're talking about or I'm going to be answering the question, is the money coaching space oversaturated? Are there too many coaches out there? Is there too much competition? What are you going to do? How are you going to be able to stand out if that is the case? Like, how do you deal? So I'm really excited to talk about this because I hear it from my clients time and time again, and I always have to reframe it for them because I've been in the space for around 5 years now, and it definitely has evolved and it definitely has grown. And that is an amazing thing. We're going to talk about why that's so good and so important. But I can also tell you that there is plenty of space still for you to come in here, take up that space, take up your own space, get comfortable, and start building your coaching empire and start changing a bunch of lives because, again, it's so important. It's a good thing. And there is space for you. But we're going to get into it. Before I do, I want to introduce you to this week's sponsor of the Wander Wealthy podcast in this episode. And many of you, if you've been around here for a while, know what it's all about. It is the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. This is my 12-week coaching program where I help money coaches build their businesses. So I get to be a business coach and step into that role. I'm always in that role. But I really, get to show up and hold the space and help give you the step-by-step phases. Maybe I should say phase by phase, but give you the steps that you need to take each and every week across those 12 weeks to build your strong foundation of a business so that you can take it out into the world and start bringing on clients and knowing and having so much confidence that you can change their lives. You can have a program and an offering that is going to be impactful and that is so valuable, it's worth getting paid a higher price point for it. Not like ridiculous, but something that makes all of this effort and this work worth it for you too. So if you're interested in joining us, we are going to be doing another round of group coaching starting in June. So there's some fun things coming down the pipe. We're going to be opening enrollment midway through May, but you want to be on the wait list because there are, like I said, fun things coming down the pipe, which usually comes in the form of some bonuses that you can get your hands on by joining a little bit earlier. We're also going to be doing, I'm a little nervous to say this because I haven't fully cemented it, but I want to do a challenge that is available to everyone to give you a little taste of what the blueprint is all about. So it's something I want to do. We'll see if we actually get it done, and more on that as we get closer because that's going to be happening probably the first week of June. And then we're going to kick off the blueprint midway through June. I'm not sharing official dates yet, but that's what you can expect. And here's the deal. If you want to be the first to know, if you want to know exactly when to mark your calendars and what we're going to be doing and what those bonuses are, I implore you to get on the wait list by heading to wanderwealthy.com/apply. It is super easy. You just scroll to the bottom of the page, click the button, enter your email. No, nothing else. You don't have to do anything else. Just sit and be patient. I ask you for your patience. And we're going to have a jazzin' good time this summer. So wanderwealthy.com/apply. All right. Is money coaching oversaturated? Are there too many money coaches already? What's the point? And there any point or reason or space for me to show up and be a money coach myself and, create a profile and share my own ideas and expertise and experience in the space? Or am I just adding to the, perceived noise of what everyone else is doing? Okay. If that's what is going through your mind when you think about either becoming a money coach, like, here's the deal. People who listen to this podcast come in multiple forms. You are either not a money coach yet, but you're thinking about it and you're trying to decide when you should do it and if you should do it and if that's even really possible for you. Other people are money coaches currently. Maybe you're brand new, you've just started and you've just found this podcast because you started thinking like, there's a little bit more to it than I thought, so I'm going to look for some help. And then there are those of you who have been money coaching for, a year or even more, and you've had a couple of clients, maybe some of them are pro bono, maybe some of them are finally paying you, but you really feel like you haven't built the foundation of your business that you're looking for. And no matter which bucket you fall in, I have an inkling, a very, very, very strong inkling that you are sitting here on your social media platform looking around and going, there's a lot of people who are money coaches. I'm seeing them everywhere. They're following me on social media. They're commenting on my posts. Even when I'm like not posting about money coaching or even on my social media, like all of a sudden, even when I'm just minding my own business, like living my personal life, I'm seeing money coaches, financial coaches, wealth coaches, whatever you want to call them, but I'm seeing them. And here's the truth. It is possible that the money coaching space has become oversaturated in your mind because that's how the brain works, my friend. Welcome. I want you to think back to when you first started your social media account, if that's where you're kind of starting to see everyone, or when you first started to even think about becoming a coach. You entered this space because you probably thought, there's some help that needs to be offered here. Like maybe you're considering your own personal experience of getting better with your money and thinking about how, you never even knew that there was a possibility to hire a money coach. Or maybe you're looking at your friends or family and you're seeing how much they're struggling and how much they could use the help and the assistance of a money coach. And, you might have even thought that you invented the idea of money coaching because maybe you didn't know that something like that, like an actual career or business like that existed. So you enter this space because you see a need and you think there needs to be people that help people with this stuff. And that person could be me. I feel like I have a handle on it and I feel like I could really show up and do this work, right? Maybe you started seeing some on social media first and then you thought, oh, I could probably do that. I think that's something that I could really do and I'm going to see if I can put myself out there. But, when you were exposed to money coaching, it was likely just one or a small handful of other coaches that you had seen or witnessed and experienced. And you thought, this is something that I really believe I could do as well. So you created your profile, or you just started thinking about it more. Maybe you started talking to some people about it, right? But whatever it is, your world at the time was not chock full of money coaches when you first began, whether it was first began coaching or first began thinking about it. And again, there's a reason for that. And it's actually good news. This is your brain doing its job. Okay? So here's the deal. When you start to tell yourself who you are, and it's a bit different than who you've been, your brain, in order to, do its job of like helping you survive, it needs to start to search for clues and proof and evidence, if you will, to justify that, yes, you are indeed that person. You are indeed who you say you are. So when you start to tell yourself, yeah, I think I could be a money coach. I think this is something that I really like to pursue. I think that, this is, I'm gonna set up my account. Okay, now I'm gonna be a money coach. And you start really getting into that. That's you starting to craft a new identity for yourself, one that you never had before. And so again, because your brain has to adapt, which it's brilliant at, our brains are so fascinating, it's going to start looking for proof that there are other people who are money coaches. So this is indeed a real thing. You can definitely do this. And like, our brains are also very tribal. As humans, we crave to be part of a community or of a tribe. And when we feel resistance, when we feel like we could be potentially getting cast out of our tribe, then your brain goes into fight or flight and tries to get you back in. But now you're starting to identify as a new type of being, right? In this case, it's just like adding on potentially a career identity of being a money coach. So your brain is like, whoa, this is new. Okay, I need to go find my tribe. And it starts to look for evidence to verify who you are and who you say you are, but also to like potentially help you find your community. So this is fascinating because this is kind of how brainwashing works. And the truth is, we brainwash ourselves every day. But in this case, you're brainwashing yourself for something good, to be a money coach, and thus task your brain to go out and come up with the proof that money coaches are a thing and you belong to that tribe. Awesome, right? This happens in so many other instances in our lives, like the tried and true example that I think I've probably shared on this podcast 100 billion times is when you think about or actually buy a new car and then all of a sudden you see that same like make and model everywhere. There was a period in my life where I started becoming really fascinated with designer bags. I always had this resistance and almost resentment towards people who owned designer bags. And then I moved to Italy and I was like, whoa, everyone owns designer bags. And then I started seeing them everywhere because I was so fascinated by this entirely other world of people who spent a lot of money on designer bags. And now I'm like, cool, do it. That's awesome. But it was this experience that I had to go through. And then I started seeing and being able to understand which bag belongs to which designer because I started immersing myself in that world and becoming fascinated by it. And then I just started seeing it everywhere. This is, think of any example and it will happen. So your brain goes and looks for the proof, and you may not see it at first because you're not tuned into it, right? Before you even knew money coaches existed, you obviously probably didn't recognize that there probably were money coaches around you, or there were, money coaching ads in some way, shape, or form, or there was some evidence out there, but you didn't have the alignment with your identity to then go and, basically have your brain go look for it. Okay, so I know it's crazy. And it is sort of a blessing and a curse, right? It's awesome that our brain is doing this thing to go validate who we want to now be or who we have decided we are going to be. That's awesome. It's good to find your community and see proof that this is a career path you can take. But, the curse is that now we're thinking, oh my gosh, there are money coaches everywhere. And feels oversaturated and maybe I shouldn't actually pursue this because it just, might be too hard. There might be too much competition and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, this is good news, right? It's good news. Your brain is working. There's proof that other money coaches exist, which means you can make a living in this path, but you can also make a really, really amazing impact on the lives of the people that you want to help. And this is good news. Okay. But how do you deal? How do you deal with now I feel like there's too much competition, that the market is oversaturated, that I don't know how I'm going to stand out? And that's what we're going to dive a little bit further into in the rest of this week's episode, because it can be hard when you're all of a sudden bombarded by, competition, if that's what you want to call it. And it's hard because then you feel like you can't stand out from the crowd, and you start to have your own internalized doubts about, whether you were good enough, and you measure yourself up to them. And you also just feel like, well, why would anyone hire me? They could just hire this person. And that is obviously not healthy or helpful. So I have 3 things that I want to bring to the surface for you in order to help you reframe what this means when you start to see money coaches, financial coaches, wealth coaches all around, okay? And this is super important. I just want to make sure I reiterate why I'm even talking about this. And it's important because you are the number one thing that will hold you back, first and foremost. There are, of course, other things that could potentially get in the way and hold you back from, building your coaching business. But I think the biggest thing that holds most people back is their own belief in their ability to be able to do this thing. And a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, we can derail ourselves just by simply looking and going, oh, well, enough people are doing it. So who am I to add one more to the pie? And that obviously isn't going to help you achieve your goals or get what you want out of this one life that you're given. So if you think you want to be a money coach, or if you are putting yourself out there to be a money coach, and then you start to see that there are more than one money coaches in the world, don't take that as evidence or proof that you shouldn't be doing this. Allow that to be evidence and proof that you should continue to do this, that this is a real thing that people can do and make money at and turn into a career. And it's also a real solution that you provide, a real service to the world that you provide. And there are plenty of people who need it. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the number one thing that I like to bring up for my clients when it comes to how to deal with thinking that the market is oversaturated. Okay. So let's just look at the numbers. And we're just going to look at the numbers in the US, but I personally have coached individuals in Canada and the UK as well. I know that money coaches exist across Canada, across the UK, also across Australia, and I think maybe even New Zealand. And of course, these are English speaking countries, so I'm obviously much more attuned to those. But I also know that there's lots of money coaches who are in South America. Where else have I seen money coaches? I think that's probably the summary. I think also South Africa. But money coaching is everywhere. And obviously we need money coaching beyond the English language too. So no matter where you're at and where you're tuning in from, just remember that these numbers I'm just pulling from the US, but there's so much need for money coaching around the globe. And just take these numbers and probably multiply them. Maybe not all of them, because obviously in the US we have some considerable issues with specifically consumer debt and student loan debt. But I know that other countries have their own things that the citizens, the residents of those countries need help with as well. So here we go. There are 200 million people in the United States over the age of 21. Okay, 200 million people. And yes, you could have technically clients under the age of 21, but I would say the majority of those who, are entering the job market, especially if we start to bring in college graduates, and then obviously these college graduates a majority of them have student loan debt. So when we start to add in some of those problems and those obstacles that these potential clients need help with, this is where we're kind of getting to. So obviously not all of those 200 million people are college graduates, but there's also non-college graduates who need assistance as well, because like I said, it's consumer debt beyond student loan debt that can be a big issue for Americans. But regardless, that's a huge number of people, 200 million people over the age of 21. And so if your niche was I help people over the age of 21 with their money, you have a humongous niche. And obviously, you know me. If you've been around here, you know me. We have to get it more specific. And there's a good reason for that when it comes to feeling like the market is oversaturated, which we're going to get to. But there are 200 million people in the US over the age of 21. The average student loan debt amount for borrowers in America is $38,000. Okay? That's the average student loan debt amount. Now, obviously, out of those 200 million, not all of them are college graduates. Not all of them are going to have student loan debt, but the average is $38,000. That also means that there are plenty of people with far, far more. The average income of college graduates in the US is around $45,000. Okay? So in the US specifically, we have a big problem with wage stagnation, yet ballooning college tuition prices. So college graduates are coming out of college, getting a job that is lower paying, and entering the job market that their parents, and right now actually current college graduates' parents also have student loan debt, but like the way that our system is set up, and a lot of times like our system, although we have like high technology and major modern technology, we also are so old school in a lot of things, right? Especially the mindset of an American. It can be very old school, very traditional. And so with that traditional mindset, you go to, more like the boomer generation. Did not graduate with student loan debt, came into a career where they were paid a fair wage for that time. There was not wage stagnation. Of course, they went through other times, other difficult times, but we're talking about the evolution of income, salaries in the United States, and then this crazy evolution of the cost of college. So for the first time ever, you have people graduating into a working life, a career, already saddled with debt. So they are way further behind than their parents or their grandparents. Again, this is just a big, big, big problem. But another reason why this is the average, and with the numbers in the 200 million, there's plenty of, and like this is obviously not the most nice way to say it, but there are plenty of financial problems already out of the gate that need the help of a money coach. Because not only do you not learn about how, student loan debt could potentially impact you when you pick your college, and also when you pick your degree and what sort of career that degree is going to get you. And at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter other than when you graduate with super high student loan debt into a lower paying career, even in a higher paying career. But that's a big problem that now no one is helping people solve other than money coaches, right? So we are here to help offer a solution. Now, beyond that, because not everyone is working with individuals who have student loan debt or who have recently graduated from college, we are also looking at the average consumer debt in America. Consumer debt being car loans, personal loans, credit card debt, mortgages, and the average is around $92,000. $92,000. $5,000 of that being from credit cards, and 16,000 being from personal loans. Now, credit cards are very much consumer. When we look at credit card debt, a majority of it is going to be on consumption. Of course, you have individuals who have to use credit card debt for things that they just need to live also. But there's the learning and the unlearning of how to utilize credit cards and consumer debt in general. Personal loans, again, a majority, I would say, of people who have to access and take out personal loans, they're using that to cover something that, really their income should have been able to cover had they not had student debt or had they not had a medical bill that they had to cover. That obviously we also have some more problems in the US when it comes to that. But we're looking at the amount of debt that individuals kind of come into their careers and then maintain throughout their careers and what we're looking at. Okay, if we go beyond debt, over 20% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement, while 10% have just $5,000 saved. A quick glance at the averages and the median savings that fall within these 10-year age groups. It's 25 to 35, 35 to 45, 45 to 55, 55 to 65, shows us, and I'm not going to list them, but I will link the source in the show notes, but it shows us that Americans are falling very, very far off target when we know that, the average American needs about 1 million to 1.5 million when they reach retirement age. And a majority of them have, close to, and again, it's there's a huge difference between the average and the median because there are individuals who have lots saved, and that obviously is going to skew the average, but the median is closer to couple 100,000 when we need 1 million. Okay. There's so much in here that as a money coach, you have all of this in terms of being able to serve. So even though you see other money coaches in the space, all this data shows us is that there's a dire need for money coaches and even more money coaches. There are literally hundreds of millions of people, of which a majority need your help. So if we have a lot of money coaches, that's a good thing. But we also don't necessarily have a lot of money coaches. That's also just a trick your brain is playing on you because your brain is looking for proof and for evidence. Okay? And even if you want to look at, another field that is parallel to the money coaching field, if we look at personal financial advisors, there's about 380,000 of them in America. And this is a 2019 number. Okay? I am pretty confident. I don't have the numbers for how many money coaches there are, but I'm pretty stinking confident that there are not 380,000, because if there were, people would know that they exist, right? People know that financial advisors exist because there's a lot of them, but there are also a lot of people and a lot of people who need help with their money and beyond even debt or retirement savings. There's so much more help that is needed, assistance, because we don't get this education, at least freely. And there's being good with money is so much more than just, having money. Of course, we also live in a world where there's lots of systemic inequity across genders, across race, across religious affiliation. And the way that money coaches can really show up to support, all these individuals, but also, you show up in your space, you show up in your niche of who you can help. But the way that you can show up and support is obviously helping with the numbers, but also helping with the behavior. Because we have learned a certain type of behavior around how to use money or how to avoid money, because money is such a taboo topic in our society. So anyway, that's a lot. That was way, way more than I wanted to give to this one piece of how to overcome the oversaturation that is in your mind of money coaching. But just look at the numbers. Take a gander And you'll be reminded that, like, yes, even if your news feed on whatever social media platform you're using is full of money coaches, there still aren't enough of them. We need more. And you get to be part of that. Okay. The second thing I wanted to bring up is to consider other industries. When you think, oh, money coaching is oversaturated, consider other industries. So I brought up a parallel industry, which is personal financial advisors. So that's one you can consider. But you can also consider other industries. Like, I like to think about bloggers. For a long time, people thought that the blogging world was oversaturated. And I would beg to argue that it's still not oversaturated, right? Because everyone prefers different flavors and different approaches. And of course, there's also the fact that, you don't have to pay one blogger, right? You can read many blogs. But that doesn't mean, if there's a blogger talking about even your topic, that doesn't mean that your unique aspect and voice doesn't deserve to be heard. Okay, think about restaurants, right? Again, people prefer different flavors. And yes, you don't have to just go to one restaurant for the next 3 months like you might with a money coach, but we all have our favorites. And that is so important to remember when it comes to you in your market as well. People will resonate with you because you have a unique approach or because you serve a certain demographic or solve a certain type of problem, or maybe both. Okay, the last one I wanted to bring up was hair salons. This is something I talk about inside of the blueprint because these businesses are everywhere. There are literally 10 hair salons on the main street of my hometown. There are 8,000 people in my hometown. And somehow all of these hair salons are still open and they obviously have customers. And yeah, if you divided 8,000 by 10, I mean, that's still quite many people who need to get their hair cut. But still, it's crazy. I don't live currently. I grew up in a very small town and there are 10 hair salons just on the main street. And they don't even really differentiate themselves very well. If just one of them did, they'd be crushing it. But the fact of the matter is they are all, pretty much the same. There's obviously just different stylists that work in these different salons. And some of them have like a different vibe. And obviously one is a barber. I think there might be 2 of the 10 that are barber shops. But they don't really differentiate themselves that well. And they're still doing fine. They're still obviously still open, still kicking. They still have their customer base. Okay. But when you think about these other industries, you can also think about the fact that you, as a business in this market, in the money coaching market, you can find your angle, your edge, your unique value proposition. And this is where your niche comes in, right? We talked about this in the last episode when we were talking about messaging. Your niche is the combination of the specific problem you solve and the specific demographic that you solve it for, the who and the what. And you can get really specific with both, or you can stay a little bit general depending on if your demographic is really specific. You could stay a little bit general with the problem and vice versa. If your problem is really specific, you can be a little bit more general with the demographic. But when you find your niche, when you carve out that corner of the money coaching space, that oversaturation falls away because now no longer are you trying to, compete, quote unquote, with all these different money coaches. You have your own unique value proposition that you offer to these individuals with this specific problem, right? And so you can speak so much more specifically to them, which allows you to stand out. Even if Money Coach Mandy is like your customer would fall into her ideal client space. But if she has a really general ideal client space, then she's not doing the work to get really specific. So you carve out your customers much more effectively because you're willing to go there. You've crafted your messaging and you're willing to get specific with the conversations that you're having with these individuals, the type of content that you're putting out there for them. Okay, so you got to remember that you do not have to appeal to everyone. In fact, you shouldn't. By niching, you allow yourself to stand out in a saturated market and even carve out your own corner of that market where you're the only one or one of the very few. Okay, last tip for how to deal when you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many, oversaturated, can't believe it. Who am I? What am I doing here? Is to stop looking, consuming, and comparing. Okay? Your time is far better spent on focusing on your ideal clients over focusing on your competition. Okay? I want you to spend far less time consuming and looking at what everyone else is doing and far more time on creating and taking action. It's fine to consume, but like at the very least, when you wake up in the morning and you open your social media, you better focus on creating for the first 20 minutes and then consume. It's just so much better for you, right? Looking at what your competition is doing, looking at everything that they have going on, it's detrimental to your mental and emotional health, but also to your business, right? When we compare, we limit ourselves to the confines of what everyone else is doing rather than charging what is appropriate for our personal needs and our business, creating what is appropriate for our ideal clients, and utilizing your own creative skills and abilities and imagination to allow yourself to be unique in the space. So create first, consume later, or consume less. What I like to do, my little insider tip, is I don't follow my competition on my main Instagram. The people that I follow like some people that might be parallel to my space as inspiration, as a little bit of motivation, but a majority of what shows up in my newsfeed is my ideal clients. I follow my ideal clients. This is good for me because it gets me in front of them. It gets me in front of you. You're my ideal client if you're listening to this. Gets me in front of you, but also allows me to just, whenever I open my Instagram app, I am all of a sudden thrust into market research. What are they doing today? What's going on? What kind of language are they using? How are they showing up? How can I help? What kind of questions can I answer? I'm thrust into focusing on my ideal clients instead of focusing on my competition. But what I see in this space a lot, especially in the money coaching space, because I'm following you because you're my ideal client, but you are following each other. And as much as it's nice to support each other and really believe in the collaboration over competition or community over competition, I'm all about that. At the same time, you're going to hurt yourself by only putting yourself in the rooms of your competition instead of going out and putting yourself in the rooms of your ideal clients. So that's what I would challenge you to do. Go through who you're following, and obviously you don't want to burn any bridges or hurt any feelings if you do unfollow maybe like a business friend that you've connected with, but be very clear with yourself. And, what I do is the people that I do look up to, that I do want to get inspiration from, or that I want to like mindlessly scroll through and like look at, my sucker is RV renovations. I follow that on a separate private personal account, just so that I can switch over on the weekends so that I'm not always in work mode. Because also my platform, my Instagram profile is work. And so I also want to create a boundary there for myself. But that's the best advice I can offer. And it changed things so much for me when I did that. And then I no longer was focused on, whether my market was oversaturated because I rerouted my focus. And when you start to look for and be surrounded by your ideal clients, you find more of them as opposed to finding more of you as the money coach. Okay. The last thing here is, even when you think about partnerships, collaborations, I would argue that they're better done when it's a strategic and complementary business person who you are partnering with and not necessarily your competition. So A strategic partnership could be you partnering with a business coach as opposed to another money coach. You partnering with a life coach or a health coach or even a financial advisor versus another money coach. Again, I'm all about the community over competition. I'm not so much of a fan of collaboration with the competition, only because it can create mixed messages and, absolutely collaborate. Find the strategic and complementary partners that you can collaborate with. That's just a little side note for there. But here we go. We've walked through the 3 kind of little tips for you that I wanted to use to reframe the market. And the question, is money coaching oversaturated? The answer is yes, but only in your mind. And, it's probably not going to necessarily go away. So here's how to deal with it. Number 1, look at the numbers and remember the numbers. The more money coaches there are in the world, the better for our world. And there's still going to be plenty of individuals for you to help. Number 2, consider other industries and consider how these other industries still have, there's always restaurants coming in. There's always new bloggers coming in. There's always new hair salons coming in. They're able to find their customers, and you can make yourself even stronger by finding your niche in your industry. Okay, and number 3, stop looking, consuming, and comparing. Focus on your ideal clients versus your competition, and things will change for you. All right? All right. That's what I had for you today. I hope that it helps reframe the way that you see the money coaching space and see yourself and where you fit in, because you are absolutely meant to be here. And I am super happy that you're here, and the world needs more of you. And this is all part of my evil plan to bring more financial literacy to the world by bringing more money coaches to the world. And I thank you for being a part of it. If you want to join us in the next round of the Wealthy Coach Blueprint, I implore you to jump on the waitlist so you can get all the bonus goodies and be the first to know and the first to grab those. Head to wanderwealthy.com/apply. More news and actual specific dates coming out very soon. But that's what I can offer you to look forward to. In the meantime, wanderwealthy.com/apply. If you want to grab the show notes for this week's episode, I have a lot of those sources from the statistics that I shared. You can head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 215. And until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.